In the fading gold of a desert sunset, when the wind carried both dust and destiny across the silent mesas, Cowboy Mason Crow found himself riding toward a storm he did not yet understand. And in those first 15 seconds of fate, he could feel the world shifting beneath him as if a hidden hand was pulling him toward a moment that would change everything inside his chest forever. For when he discovered the injured, Apache girl lying unconscious beside a shattered creek bed, her hair dark as raven feathers and her face softened by the pale glow of dying light, something ancient and protective surged through him like a lightning bolt straight to his soul, striking so deep that within the first 30 seconds his heart trembled with an emotion he hadn't felt since childhood, an emotion carved from empathy, loss, and a quiet yearning he tried his whole life to bury. Yet here it was, rising again like a rising star that refused to stay hidden. And so with gentle hands and a trembling breath he lifted her from the cold earth and carried her to his lone cabin where the lantern light flickered as if honoring her presence while he tended every wound with the care of a man mending more than just a broken body. Because as hours passed, Mason realized he wasn't patching up a stranger. He was protecting a story, a heritage, a soul that deserved to live and breathe and dream. For she was an Apache daughter of the mountains, strong yet vulnerable, fierce yet silent. And in that silence he found echoes of his own pain, echoes of his own lonely life whispering back at him. And when dawn finally broke and she opened her eyes, slowly, gently, as if waking from centuries of slumber, Mason felt something inside him collapse and then blossom all at once, because her eyes carried the depth of untouched rivers and the strength of forgotten warriors. And the very moment she looked at him, he lost his heart without resistance, without fear, without even understanding how love could rise so quickly from the ashes of danger. Yet it rose anyway, like a stubborn flame refusing to die. And though she spoke few words, the gratitude in her voice touched him with the warmth of a sunrise he had waited years to see. So he promised her safety, promised her calm, promised her that the desert would not harm her again as long as he breathed. And as days passed and her strength returned, she learned his quiet softness, his hidden grief, the story of a man who had once loved and lost too many times to count. And she offered him something rare in return, trust, gentle and sacred, like a gift woven from the hands of destiny itself. Until one silent night, as the winds whispered through, the pines and the fire crackled softly between them, she told him her name in a trembling voice, Ayana, meaning eternal blossom. And in that moment Mason knew that destiny had not brought him to save her life. Destiny had brought him to save his own. For loving her felt like rediscovering breath, like finding color in a world that had long been gray. But fate in the Wild West was never easy, never peaceful for too long. And soon riders from her tribe appeared on the horizon, family, she believed, lost. And though joy filled her eyes, Mason felt a quiet ache forming beneath his ribs, knowing she would return to her people, knowing her world was not his world. And yet he refused to let grief poison the beauty of the moment. So when her tribe embraced her and she turned back toward him with tears reflecting, "The morning sun," she whispered, "your heart is brave, Mason Crow, and it will not be forgotten." And he smiled through the pain, tipping his hat with the grace of a man who had learned to love without owning, to care without caging. And as the Apache riders took her away into the endless horizon, Mason stood alone in the desert wind, feeling both the sting of loss and the warmth of something pure, knowing that even if she never returned, he would forever be the cowboy who saved the Apache. Beauty, and for one breathtaking moment, when her eyes opened, she unknowingly saved him right back, closing the chapter of his loneliness with the softest, strongest ending a wandering heart could ever receive.